What is so interesting, I think, about statistics, the world can be random, but it is not haphazard, meaning that there's actually structure to randomness. You would expect certain things to happen randomly, but when it actually goes beyond a certain bound, you know that randomness cannot explain it. So that really is, I think, that the magic of statistics. My name is Albert Lee. I'm a partner at Summit Consulting, a quantitative consultancy in Washington, D.C. The branch of statistics that I practice is called econometrics. It is about applying statistical practice and statistical theory to economic data. You know, a very typical application right now, everybody has a computer and people go to a website, I want to find out how much is my home. A valuation model is an econometrics model. It grabs a lot of the sales data in the neighborhood, and by pooling all the information in the neighborhood together, an econometrics model would be able to disaggregate the price component that is actually based on these characteristics. Then you showed up and you tell me, I have a house that looks like this big, with this many bedrooms, with a swimming pool, and with a garage. Then using the local information, I could essentially calculate what the home sales price would need to be. I was born in Hong Kong in 1968, so Hong Kong then was still a British colony. Luckily, I have some forefathers who had roots in the United States, so we moved to the United States in the 1970s. After graduate school, my first job was actually teaching. I was at UCLA, teaching undergraduate statistics, then moved to Washington. It was really around that time when federal agencies in particular realized that they were sitting on decades worth of data that they actually have collected. So you have three things coming together: computing power, the discovery of I'm sitting on tremendous amount of data, and then there was just the explosion of theoretical advances. So that, to a huge extent, kind of like explained my entire, consulting career. I started a company at the basement of this building because my very first contract was here, and I was essentially by myself, and we have no office space.
Who was your first government client?
HUD. And we were estimating the performance of multifamily mortgages. For the longest time, the housing market in itself is very discriminatory. Banks do not lend to certain areas. African Americans do not actually get mortgages that most people would get. So the last few years, a lot of question has been asked about these valuation models, something that's actually calculating home prices, whether or not they have a racial bias to it. So the typical story has always been, an appraiser, they go to a house, they realize that, the appraiser probably is white, the homeowner is African American, and somehow subliminally they depress the price. So there's plenty of evidence, many tests has been done. But the question has never been asked, would a machine do it? People would a priori think, well, a machine cannot discriminate. So somebody asked the question and somebody asked us to check. I told my team, I said, don't do any fancy statistics yet. Just do something very simple. Grab a database in a city, calculate the difference between the machine and the truth, but line up these differences as a bar chart according to the minority density. When we arrayed that for a number of cities, according to the highest density to the lowest density, there was a trend. These valuation models systematically and pervasively undervalue homes that is in minority dense neighborhood. So I very naturally, I asked this question. I was like, maybe African Americans, live in certain neighborhoods. So, okay, wealthy neighborhoods, poor neighborhood, pull them apart and see if you see the same trend. If the hypothesis is true, that, it's just really wealth effects, then you would start seeing these, what I refer to as dancing zeros. So we did not see dancing zeros. these discrimination cases, despite the fact that the bank settles, the bank also need to tell the agencies how are they going to improve their practices, going forward. They are also obliged to actually improve the process. And through that, people who would not have gotten mortgages would get mortgage because of us. It's creating a much fairer playing field economically, for many people. I like your shirt, Senate Data Science.
I'm always representing.
There you go. What are you working on today?
Treasury OCA.
Treasury.
Adam?
I'm putting together a slide deck to show our capabilities on rural development as well as FPACs.
Okay, good. USDA. All right.
NAS stands for National Agricultural Statistic. It's one of these fascinating, projects that I am so privileged, to work on. NAS every year administered upwards of 400 sets of surveys, and it collect every aspect about the American agricultural sectors. But you will not be surprised that there are data quality issues with surveys. Inside USDA, there is a system where they check the internal consistencies with the survey. So imagine the following, right? Somebody asks a question, hey, how many children do you have? 5. How many boys? 3. How many girls? 3. Wait a minute. So you have missing data information and you have something that is actually internally inconsistent. And of course, this problem is very complicated because a survey contains 50, 60, 80, items. And so things can actually go wrong very easily. So the client come and ask us, could you build a system for us that could resolve some of these data inconsistencies? I'll tell you the bottom line. The bottom line, ultimately, we were successful. And we did it, and we changed really, in a very significant way, U.S. official statistics. In consulting, there's really no right answer as much as there's helpful answer. In a work environment, there's a tremendous amount of constraints. And so, sometimes that the right answer is not the practical answer. Right. Every single time when a database is given to you, it's almost like reading a novel for the first time. It's like a book of letters, but only this time you have to arrange this letter so the book would make sense to you. The second exciting aspect about it is now it's my job to communicate what this book just told me to a client. Consulting occurs when an idea in my head jumps into your head with the same level of clarity. If that's the case, consulting is fundamentally a human interaction, is fundamentally about communication, and more importantly, is fundamentally about trust. Not blind trust. You need to look at every last thing that I actually have done so I can actually offer transparencies to you. But consulting is nonetheless about these human interactions. If I actually have to say, when was the magic moment, right? It's that moment I was like, somehow that I get enough courage to say, all right, I'm going to be on my own. At that moment, in some sense, it frees me up to make all the other decisions. I no longer actually have to do what other people tells me to do. Now I can actually start executing, what is actually in my head. Starting the business is not nearly as hard as hiring the first employee, because I was young when I started my business. I can talk to myself, I can eat beans, if things are not working out. Hiring people is different, right? It takes a lot more courage. Like imagine at that time, right, 2003, there's one of me, I have no office. Why would anybody join me? Except for the fact that you can articulate the vision. Yes, we can actually do something very interesting with data. The uniqueness, and we have a sense of mission. But now what I'm actually interested in, it's about people's curiosity. The world is changing so fast. The only thing that I know that would actually keep a company like this ongoing is curiosity and the capacity to learn. Because things that I know yesterday may or might not help me tomorrow. Because a lot of the things that we do are completely new. There's no template. Nobody had done that before. So it's about, that sense to embrace innovation and curiosity and capacity to learning.